Rocky Top Center post-game, Ryan Shumpert, Rick Butler standing here on the field of Neyland Stadium. Ryan, this game, it was almost like program records were being handed out like free T-shirts out of the cannon at Tennessee basketball games. Tennessee comes out to a massive, a monster 71-0 win over Kent State. 71 points, by the way, a new record, a new program record for most points in a game in the modern history of Tennessee football. It was just one after another after another after another in the first half. I don't even know if there was a drive without a touchdown in the first half.
No, there wasn't a drive without a touchdown. I think the first 7 of them, I want to say maybe it was 5 of them. I don't know. Nico had the first number of them, I think 5 of them. And then the last 2 for Gaston Moore. What was it at halftime?
Halftime, 65-0.
So, no, it would have been 7 for Nico. 7 for Nico, then 2 for Gaston Moore. A safety on there. Kent State had some snapping problems in this game. And then Tennessee obviously stole the possession, too, with the onside kick, which was nasty business by Josh Heupel. In the midst of the domination to pull the onside kick.
Wild.
But no, I mean, we knew Kent State was really bad. We knew Tennessee was going to win by a lot. We knew even a look down or a look ahead letdown spot would still result in a Tennessee blowout. But there was none of that. It was a completely dominant performance. Tennessee came out sharp. Kent State couldn't get a first down for most of the first half, while Tennessee's offense, like you said, scored on every drive they had in the first half.
Tennessee's offense was firing on all cylinders, like Ryan said, just like you would expect them to. Dylan Sampson, again, I feel like a little bit of a broken record. We're moving into some better competition here now that the season's going, but for these first 3 games, there's been a lot of great storylines around this Tennessee football team, but certainly Dylan Sampson is at the top of that list or around the top of it. He's been phenomenal for Tennessee's rushing game, and he's really been able to open things up a little bit more. But, Ryan, you just mentioned it, and we've been talking a lot about this team, right? They scored 65 points in one half. We kind of have a pretty good understanding of what these starters are. Yes, there's still questions to be answered, but I think you feel pretty good about where they are heading into the SEC opener next week. The nice thing about these games, though, is it gives you a chance to empty out the bench a little bit. I think a couple of players made their Tennessee debut. I know Edwin Spillman, the linebacker, he made his debut for Tennessee tonight. Mike Matthews really got himself into the rotation. So, obviously, in a game like this, less to talk about from the starters' perspective. They did their job. They scored. But you can kind of break down a little bit more into those next-tier players.
Yeah, a couple quick thoughts left on the starters before I get into that. Dylan Sampson, 9 touchdowns so far in the season. Tennessee's single-season rushing touchdown record's 18. So he's halfway there. Like you said, competition will get a lot harder.
Already more than his total from last year as well.
Yeah.
And I know a lot more opportunity without an NFL-type back there. But, hey, it's pretty good.
For sure. And I'm sure we'll talk more about this on the podcast, more deep dive on it. But Chaz Nimrod gets to start at receiver. A little bit of different stuff with the receiver rotation tonight. So I thought that was worth noting. And Mike Matthews played a role in that as well. And to start with him, he was really good. And you kind of saw that flash. I think the first real play he made was after the safety, so it was a good punt or kick return opportunity on the punt. And he had a long return there. A couple nice catches, including a touchdown catch where Gaston Moore threw it, and he went up high to get it and kind of took a hit and still held on. So he looked really good in his debut. It'll be curious to see if he can kind of work his way into that receiver rotation. Peyton Lewis on the offensive side of the ball ran the ball really well, had a couple nice long runs. And then you said it, Edwin Spillman played well when he was in there. And then Idris Farouk, who did miss one tackle in the open field, but just, again, it felt like he was around the ball a ton. He's a guy that I've been impressed with in mop-up duty the first 3 weeks of the season. And, again, I don't know how much we'll see it matter this year outside of special teams, but a guy, when you start looking at the future of Tennessee's defense, it's easy to pencil him in or picture him as a future starter.
Absolutely. I thought it was really fascinating. Josh Heupel talked about it after the game. Tennessee obviously did not let an opposing offense into the end zone through those first 2 games. They continued that by shutting out Kent State here tonight. But we know what the capability of the starters are. We know kind of what the capability of even Tennessee's 2 deep unit is. But Josh Heupel and Jeremiah Telander talked about it today. From top to bottom, no matter which guys are out there on the field, they want to carry that same level of pride that the defense wants to show. They want to carry that same level of physicality, no matter if it's a starter who's been here for years or a guy who just got here, maybe even making his debut like Edwin Spillman. I think that really just kind of shows and indicates what this culture looks like. We use culture as a cliche buzzword a lot, but I think it definitely has a little bit of meaning here. Tim Banks and the assistant coaches, man, they just have this defense flying all over the field. But in a game where maybe there's not that many notes to take away from the field, I take away a big note that both Josh Heupel and Jeremiah Telander were very passionate about saying, hey, our defense from top to bottom, they have the same belief, they have the same goal, they have the same mindset. Doesn't matter who's out there, we have the same belief.
For sure, and Josh Heupel might have said it at some point in the last week or even tonight, and it's just a coaching common phrase. The standard is the standard. No matter who's in, that's the expectation. I think actually Tim Banks, I want to say, actually was the one who said it when he met with the media on Tuesday. So no letdown, and I mean, we've talked about it a lot, but that's just an example of the improved depth more than anything, I think. And Tennessee can go 3 deep on defense, and a lot of spots are still pretty good. And even at the spots that are maybe not as good, it's not just completely bare, and they're able to continue to play at a high level.
Besides maybe going for the onside kick, what else kind of stood out to you here tonight? Yeah, I know. I didn't know what else you might have, so I'm throwing it out to you.
How bad Kent State's center was at snapping the ball. Dylan Sampson stayed in the game a little bit longer than I expected. He obviously continues to run the ball really, really well. I mean, I think the more breathtaking play or the play of the night would be the long touchdown pass from Nico to Chris Brazell right in this corner of the end zone, right where we're standing. That was a really nice throw. And I guess actually what stood out to me tonight was Gaston Moore. I thought played really well.
Okay.
I did have that something I wrote about this week as
I was going to say that
a key or something I wanted to see, because he did not that he played awful in the chat game, but it wasn't like he was great. He didn't play a ton. I thought they'd play him more than he did. He only got 2 drives, and then they cycled through all the quarterbacks. Merklinger played a couple drives, and then Navy Schuler and Ryan Dameron also got some action. But Gaston Moore was really good when he was in. He threw a really nice deep ball to Dante Thornton on a 3rd down with pressure in his face, kind of reminiscent to a couple of those throws he made in the orange and white game back in the spring. So, again, he didn't. I would have liked to see more of him, but when he was in, you really couldn't ask much more from Gaston Moore. And at least I leave this game feeling like, all right, if Tennessee needs Gaston Moore to win a game for them in SEC play, I feel maybe better for Tennessee's sake than I would have coming into the game.
Sure, and that's an important thing, because obviously I think what these 3 games here have told you, and what the chaos around college football has looked like over these 3 weeks, is that you always got to be prepared to take the opportunity that is in front of you. Speaking of Tennessee's next opportunity, we have a lot of time to break this down for the next week, so we're not necessarily going to be doing that here. But we know that Tennessee faces Oklahoma coming up next week in Norman. ESPN's College Game Day is going to be there. That news broke during the game. It is going to be massive. It's going to be a huge game. So, of course, we're going to be talking about throughout the week. We'll be back on the RTI Press Pass podcast to talk about that. Maybe even some bonus content if we can think of it along the week. But it's a big one coming up next week.
Yeah, it is. It gets all the more real. Obviously, NC State was a big test, but this is an SEC game, and I think one before the season, the 3 games that people circled as the hardest, this one was in there. And Oklahoma hasn't looked great to this point. I think I picked Oklahoma to win going into the season. I would pick Tennessee to win sitting here now, but you still expect this one to be a challenge. And I'm sure will be a lot of talking points this week. I'm sure Josh Heupel will be very tired of people talking about him and his playing days this week. But storylines galore, as Duvall said, West.
I think he already might be, too.
Yeah, probably.
It's going to wrap it up for us again, 71-0. Tennessee finds the victory over Kent State to move to 3-0 on the season. We're going to go up and record a podcast right now, but we got lots more post-game work coming up for you as well. Don't go. Stay tuned to Rocky Top Insider as you continue your Tennessee football coverage. It's Ryan Shumpert. I'm Rick Butler. See you back for the next one.